Look out! It's just two middle-aged geeks on film.
You're back with that, huh? You're back to that bullshit.
Just for the day.
I don't mean bullshit anyway. I really do like it. You know that. But yes, we are back. It's two middle-aged geeks on film. With all apologies to Brett Goldstein.
No apologies necessary. He loves us.
He loves us. I just watched yesterday because my son and I are going through Shrinking, and we were in season 2, and we saw him pop up. And I kind of told him I told him he was right again. I think I told him he was in it, but he kind of forgot that he was in it. So when he showed up, he's like, Roy Kent. I'm like, yes, that's Roy Kent.
No. It's a baby face masquerading as Roy Kent.
True. Plus, he opens his mouth. He sounds nothing like Roy Kent. You're like, oh, okay.
No, he just sounds like Brett Goldstein.
Right. You're like, oh, okay. I remember the first time I ever heard Brett Goldstein not be Roy Kent. And I was like, that's your voice? Okay. You're really good at Roy Kent.
He's very good at Roy Kent. Although I hope he uses his real voice as Hercules.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't think he will. I think it's be closer to Roy Kent.
I don't want that. I want him to sound just like he sounds. Just a baby-faced Hercules.
Oh, you know what?
I
don't care what he sounds like. Just give him to me. Just give him to me, please. Just make that happen, MCU. I know, there are rumors. Rumors are persisting that they're doing some kind of Hercules project, and I'm crossing all my fingers and dotting all my I's and crossing all my T's and everything else. I might be the only one who wants to.
Season 3 right now, though, buddy. He's got to focus on that first.
I get it.
And Ted Lasso season 4.
I get it. And we also got to wait. I think, honestly, if I'm predicting right, I think we're pushing Chris Hemsworth, not pushing him out, but we're letting Chris Hemsworth go. He's moving on soon. That's always the rumor as well. I think Hercules.
We're taking him up to
Valhalla,
the farm that you send your pets to when you're a kid because your parents don't want to tell you that they've passed away, so they send them to the fun farm where you can't go and visit. That's where we're sending Chris Hemsworth Thor.
That is where Chris Hemsworth is on his way eventually, after maybe a movie or two still potentially, but either way, I think after that
they were going to do a 5th Thor movie, but it just kind of doesn't feel as in the cards.
I do wonder if that's going to happen. It feels like, obviously he's in Doomsday. He did post that Instagram post. It was basically thanks to all the fish hanging away. That's what it kind of felt like. But I do wonder if it's kind of I still wouldn't be surprised if they do a final Thor film.
He's the only character that you can kill and arguably still do shit with because he could still go to Valhalla.
True, exactly. Well, the funny thing is, and I'm not necessarily pushing for this because I don't think they should necessarily do this. You could see them do a Black Widow kind of thing where he dies in Doomsday, then they do a Thor 5, as in what happened beforehand kind of thing.
Because of how Love and Thunder ends, my expectation is that he'll die and go to Valhalla, and we're gonna get an entire
in Valhalla movie
type of movie. Yeah.
I could see that. What if Hercules has to go to Valhalla to get Thor out and gets Thor out, and then at the end of the movie, Thor is actually back alive, but he's just doing his own thing anymore. So it's one of those like Peter Capaldi and Doctor Who. Thor is always out there somewhere. He's just
I like
Cosmos adventures kind of thing. Not
the fact that there's a potential of us not getting a Hercules and Thor buddy cop cosmic series is just really unfortunate for everybody involved.
It is. It would be so good. Brett and Chris together, I think, would be absolute gold. I think they would be so much fun together. Listen, Kevin, we're pitching gold here. We really are. Get your shit.
There's so frequently where I'm like, why are we not the ones running things? And then I get to certain points and I say things and I go, this is why I don't run things.
Yeah.
Because, if I'd had my way, Tremors would be, attacking the Thanksgiving Macy's Day Parade. So,
which I would love, and that's exactly why I'm sitting here with you.
My Graboid fan fiction in my head of Graboids take Manhattan. I can dream.
You know what? We should do we should combine our projects. Maybe we'll get it made then. We'll combine Tremors with the V franchise. So the lizards have taken over the Earth, then the Tremors Graboids attacking them, and so it's the aliens
Tremors versus ID4.
I love it.
It can't be worse than ID4 2 anyway.
Oh, I haven't watched that movie once.
I saw it once in theaters. I haven't seen it since.
No, and I was like, oh. I felt like the Godfather, my poor sweet boy. They massacred my boy.
There's this moment in it where, because Will Smith decided to do Suicide Squad over that movie, so there's this moment where we find out that his character has died in a fiery explosion where he was testing things. This great fighter pilot dies in a testing thing, and they have a portrait of him hanging in the White House of him in the desert from the first movie. A moment that no one could have captured, by the way, because
right.
no one was there to see
There
it.
was shit going on. There's a lot of shit going on at that point.
But there's a portrait of him walking across the desert from the first movie with Jeff Goldblum, and you're just like, this is the ride we're in for.
Yes, that was definitely was a choice. Bill Pullman's, I believe, his facial hair was a choice in that one as well. If I remember correctly.
Oh, that has baby Hemsworth in it too.
Yes,
now that I think about it, funny enough.
One of the other Hemsworths. Actually, no, it is baby Hemsworth.
And that was not to be mean, but he's literally in the Expendables too.
Because how many Hemsworths are? Because there's the one that was in Westworld too, and that's like the other Hemsworth.
I don't even know that Hemsworth.
I forget his name. There's at least three of them though. There's at least three of them. I
don't really know. Skarsgård, they just keep popping up.
I don't because of Westworld and Ned Harris. That's really the only reason I know. So, but yeah, you're right. And it's interesting you say that too. By the way, Will Smith decided to turn down Independence Day Resurgence and made Suicide Squad. That's
at the same time though, like you kind of get it. You kind of get it.
I get the idea at the time. On paper, absolutely. And who knows? Maybe the David Ayer cut is actually that much better, like he promises. But I don't really believe.
So we're in that weird time now because it starts real fast. By the way, because you have Suicide Squad and BVS basically back to back,
right?
Where there are these movies that the studio just completely took a hammer to, and this whole universe starts to fracture really, really quickly because of this.
Some would argue that it never actually was whole enough to fracture. It was like it was like just came out of the oven, wasn't even like settled before, so they started breaking it apart pretty much.
Yeah, because I mean, for some people, and not us, if you listen to the Man of Steel podcast, we talked about it at great length. And we both came out the other side about it being a very good movie. One that it has its lumps and stuff, but there's a lot of people who just don't like that movie. And so it was already off to a rough start for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decide to do a sequel to it that's not really a sequel, but it is. But you're throwing Batman into the mix right away and going into it as this idea that, but it's the Dark Knight Returns Batman, so he's an older, angry Bruce who wants to pick a fight with a god that we've only seen once, by the way. And this is, I'm just going to say it up front. The biggest problems with this movie are not just the stuff that happened to the studio. We're going to be covering the Ultimate Cut, which is the better version of this movie.
By far.
But the biggest problems with this movie are things that were inherently baked into it from the beginning. And that, like, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off now and say that now because I like this movie. I want to love this movie and I don't love this movie. But I like this movie. And it's really frustrating because out the gate, you can feel the seams already breaking because the ideas don't quite coalesce the way they do, and it's all so that they can speed run to get to Justice League.
Right, and that part I believe is a studio mandate. It was a studio mandate to get their shit together. Let's get Justice League out there because Marvel has the Avengers out there. Hell, at this point, Marvel has Age of Ultron like right on the cusp kind of thing, and it's like they have all these superheroes. DC has Superman. And if one character was going to be able to do this, like what they wanted to do, it would have been Batman because he is so well known. So, I mean, I understand the idea of getting that out there and even choosing Wonder Woman the way they did, get Trinity out there. That's the way to do it. It just wasn't a smart idea overall. And I think the honestly truth is, you texted me that last night, by the way, same that I didn't hold you that. It's a great quote. I like this movie. I want to love it. Because I feel the same way. I want to love it. And I told you back. I wrote you back. I said that there's a lot of, I understand why people who do love this movie, and there's some strong defenders of this movie, they love this movie for a reason. I get why they love the movie. I also get why they why the people who hate the movie. It's just like that in between mixture of things. And it all does start from the beginning. And it's basically what it feels to me again. We're armchair quarterbacks, and obviously we got the sense of 10 plus 12 years in like behind us now, and we've read interviews, we see things, and I know it's amazing. But I think the problem is they decided to half-heartedly commit to something instead of going one full-on direction. Obviously, this all started with the Batman trilogy by Christopher Nolan. Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. Seminal pieces of work. I mean, I know you have your issues with like Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, but as a whole, well-beloved films.
I mean, they're look. I'm just the truth of the matter is my bigger problems is I'm tired of grimdark Batman.
Absolutely, I understand that.
And I like the Nolan movies. I don't love them like everyone else just because I tend to lean more towards the animated series and like Batman 89 and Batman Returns. Like for me, that's what I want from Batman. I want something that is gothic, semi-grounded, but allowed to be comic booky.
Right.
And things like that. But I will never say like I may not love the Nolan movies as much as everyone else, although I think Batman Begins is like magnificent. It's my favorite of those three.
Mm-hmm. Mine too,
because it's the one that feels the most like a comic book.
Fair.
My problem with the Nolan movies is not that he made them the way they did. It's that everyone else chased them after the fact. And I think that that is inherently the biggest problem also with this version of the DCU because he produces these too.
Right.
And they try so hard to be grounded and realistic in some capacity and chase his template, if you will.
That's partly what I was getting into. And I don't want to get into the Batman side of things too much, only because I think eventually we'll probably cover a Batman run. I think we'll have a Batman run in here eventually at some point. Because there's enough of those films that we both highly enjoy. For sure.
Dude, I can get drunk and watch Batman and Robin and I'll have the time of my life. It's fine.
100%. Absolutely. But what I was saying, those films were just seminal pieces. They were so successful. Everybody was like loving them. Even if some of us had hesitations, like you did, like for example, I had some hesitations for it as well. I don't want to get committed to a complete thing, but either way, Batman trilogy was what it was. And right from the get-go, the idea was, okay, well, what do we do next? We got to chase that next big thing. Let's do Superman in the same fashion. We're going to do Superman as grounded as you can be. Now, grounded and gritty works for a Batman movie. It's much harder to do grounded for an alien with godlike powers coming to Earth and being Superman. It's much harder to tackle that story. I'm not saying it can't be done, and I think they do a decent job. I think Man of Steel did a decent job of it. I kind of liked what they were doing with it overall. But the idea was they wanted to commit to that. And the first film, they never really said. I don't think they ever really said whether it was in Nolan's universe or not. Like
they never. It's always been vaguely just kind of the Batman stuff was there because you saw like Wayne Enterprises and things like that, but we never told who's what.
Nolan was the executive producer, so it made sense. Like if you thought Man of Steel was in that universe, I completely would understand that, and they never really denied it. They really pushed it. They didn't like say this was an expansion, but they kind of just like did their thing. Then I think they wanted to. I think the idea was this is the most successful. Warner Brothers probably was a studio thing. It's like this is a successful thing. Marvel has their thing. We can start ours off of this universe and go with that. We have Nolan in there, Man of Steel. Let's move it and do it this way. But then you get to Batman vs Superman, and you realize you have a big problem. You're like, I can't, and they both have said that. They both said this later on. Snyder and Nolan both had a conversation about it. They said, well, we can't have Batman take on Superman in the first film and not have it be Bruce Wayne. And at the end of Dark Knight Rises, Bruce Wayne has retired, and John Blake was going to take over the role, possibly as the new Batman, or that was kind of left, obviously, big, or never left to be, was it be Robin, Nightwing, whatever it was. So they couldn't do it that way. So they said, we can't do that. We have to have it be Bruce Wayne. So we're going to we're going to excise ourselves from the Batman, that Dark Knight trilogy canon, and we're going to create our own Batman. And that's where they cast Ben Affleck. But they never commit to that. And quite frankly, because like you said, they want to do the Dark Knight Returns, the seminal Frank Miller comic book, which is as gritty dark Batman as you can get. They combine it with Doomsday, which is kind of it's not that dark of a Superman story outside, like as far as like, I mean, Superman dies in the book series, obviously, comics, so it's dark enough, but it's not like the same kind of dark. It's a comic book dark. But you're going to have Dark Knight Returns, which is an old, retired Batman coming out of retirement. If you really want to commit to that, then you just should have gone with Bale and made it part of the saga. Because honestly speaking, you could have just brought Bale back. Maybe he didn't want to, maybe that's part of the thing. You could have brought Bale back. He could have come out of retirement, could have done this whole thing for this part of the series, and then he could have gone from there and incorporated John Blake as something else later on, as Robin or Nightwing, and go from there. You could have done that. That's what you want to do, but you didn't.
Well, and they pitched it that way too. That's the thing, is like they just backed off of it because they didn't want to mess with Nolan's trilogy, which fine, fair enough, but you really run into this issue now, in which case we don't know this Batman, and now this Batman has this fucking weird history amongst himself and his time in Gotham, which is also weird because, like, people kind of don't know he exists while knowing he exists, and like the Joker has happened, and but maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, they have this weird, convoluted version of his history.
Yeah, it's they're questioning all these things. We actually still get the origin story. We still get the freaking Pearl scene like we have in like every Batman origin movie. It's freaking. I don't need to see Pearl scene anymore. I'm done with the Pearl scene. We get it at this point. We have that, but yet everybody seems to know but not know Batman. And it's like, well, what are you doing? If he's this old and grizzled and like had been there for a while, people would know, and he would be a lot bigger. And then Batman and Batman had been around that long since Superman just came to Earth. Like that, the whole thing seems like so weird because like they're similar ages and stuff, and it's like, what are you doing here? I mean, I guess that's the crux of the main issue at the beginning, is that you just didn't really commit to anything. Like you didn't commit to anything either way. You kind of like, it's whatever the story needed. Oh, we need Batman not to be known so well, so we can go this angle. Okay, but now
also he's branding people.
that was a little weird. That was a little weird. Not. I bought it. I could buy that. I don't necessarily love it, but I don't think it's out of the. It's like not insanely out of the ordinary. I don't think, but yeah, it was definitely a strange choice for sure. And not. I mentioned before about Bale coming back, and they should just go on that route. That's what they're going to do. I am not in any way sledding Ben Affleck, because I think Ben Affleck is probably the best thing of this movie, easily to me.
Affleck is so good in a movie that doesn't know what to do with him, and that the truth of the matter is that I feel like that's kind of the movie as a whole. Everything that's really good in this movie, which there is a lot of, is very good in a movie that doesn't know what to do with them, because it's all so that it can go in circles to get us to Justice League.
Right.
And it really takes way too long for a movie called Batman v Superman to get to the Batman fighting Superman thing. This movie, the version that we watched, the Ultimate Cut, is 3 hours long.
Right.
It takes over 2 hours to finally get to the very first time that they finally even throw punches at each other.
I mean, I like the idea of having Bruce versus Clark first, and that's one of the better scenes in the first 2 hours, is the Bruce and Clark at the museum when they're kind of like,
sure, I like that.
So I like the idea of doing that first, but I don't disagree with you. I mean, how long? I don't remember how long the theatrical cut was. Is it 2.5? 2.5. Okay, so still, even the theatrical cut, I feel like it took way too long to get there. Yeah. It just is a lot of groundwork you have to cover, and I know in the theatrical cut, like I don't remember much of theatrical cuts. I've only watched the Ultimate Edition since it came out, but I do remember we've had conversations that it was really less of a Superman movie. Like they just basically excised a lot of the Clark stuff out,
and the Lois stuff too.
Clark to Lois, which is like insane considering this was supposed to be a Man of Steel sequel, when really it became basically a Batman movie. The theatrical version was more of a Batman movie. So I guess maybe that's why they gave him solid first heading, Batman versus Superman instead of Superman versus Batman. I don't know.
Well, it was also because Man of Steel didn't perform to expectations, and Batman is a character that generally sells. Yeah. So if you put Batman first.
Right.
Now, granted, they're also being like clever with, but see, and I remember, I think it was John Roca when this was announced, and he was talking about the Batman v Superman thing was a legal termination. Like the idea being that when you do it, when a case, this is what it is, Batman v Superman. Like when someone, and that's how they're selling it, is that Batman is picking a fight with Superman. And so it, like, the legal precedence in it, and this is not a joke, is that it is Batman has a problem with Superman and is doing this. And so that's how they're also selling it, is almost like this, he is picking a fight with Superman.
That is cute. That is cute.
And you're just, it's so on the nose. And it's such a bummer because what we needed before this was a single Superman sequel.
Absolutely.
We jumped so hard and so quickly into this story that I don't know Clark well enough for us to, when we get to the end, it is the second film and he's dead already. Like, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, he's already dead.
You're not wrong at all. It is amazing that, like, to me, that we are introducing Batman, but we already supposed to know Batman, and I feel like I know more about Batman than I do about Superman by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it just feels like really strange. I mean, like, and I don't even know that much about Batman, honestly, because I think I infer a lot from what I know about Batman, because this Batman is pretty similar to what we know, generally speaking. I feel like it's kind of like, okay, so,
well, because it pulls on just about every one of the Batman mythos that, like, we all are well aware of to this point.
Right.
Which I'm not trying to sit here and say that Batman's like the world's most interesting character and you can do so many different things with him, right? But I am saying that they kind of headlong into this in the wrong way, because if we're supposed to know more about this brooding, dark Batman who has been around for a long time, I'd also argue we probably needed a Batman movie to set this up.
I totally agree. And I was actually going to jump on that too. That's part of the thing that they really screwed up with. And that's what Marvel did so well. They had the Iron Man movie, they had Thor movie, they had Hulk movie, Captain America, all before the Avengers. Here we have Superman, and we have Superman 2 starring Batman, and a slice of Wonder Woman, a slice of Flash, even smaller slices of Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg. Which I don't even know was in the theatrical cut or not. Was that a stuff in the theatrical cut?
Oh, that's in the
all stuff was in there.
theatrical cut.
Okay. I didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, I mean, we jump right back to Superman and Lois. Like, they're together for a while now, and it seems like we've had a time jump. I don't feel like we got to know, because really at the end of Man of Steel, they barely knew each other still. They really were just finding each other and everything else. And now it feels like they've been like married. They look an old married couple, like they've been together forever. And it feels like that. And I don't know if that's the way to work at this point too. But that's what they're going for. That's what they're going for. It's just, I'm not sure what the film really wants to do on its own. Like, I mentioned that Man of Steel. What I love about Man of Steel is I like the idea of Zack Snyder put forward. I like the idea of God like hero versus like a like, are these people gods? Should they be worshipped? Should they be feared? That whole mythology of things. I like, that's kind of been DC's angle for a while. Anyway, they've always had that kind of like different. That's the difference between DC and Marvel. I like that idea to explore, and I think that's more of what it should have been. And there's stuff in there. There is definitely stuff of that in Batman vs Superman. Actually, that's Lex and Bruce's main motivating factors at this point. However, it gets lost with this idea of, well, we also got to have a big action piece, and we also got to develop Justice League, and we got to set up Darkseid coming and everything else. And it's just kind of like, okay, so you're losing your theme, the theme of your movie. You're losing it in order to try to rush build a world so you can compete with Marvel. And you really just should have let it go organically, and I think you could have gotten there. You have heroes that have done it.
You're so right. And in some capacity, the whole, should we still be worshiping them? Like, that's kind of the angle of Batman in this. Because you get all of that with his character, which I do like. I like the opening of him being in Metropolis during the battle. I like all of that. Yeah,
seeing it from his perspective, seeing it from the person, like the human perspective, we're watching them as God, as a black man. It was actually much more horrifying watching that than doing it during Man of Steel. Man of Steel, you're up there with him. You almost feel like you're with that battle. When you're Bruce Wayne, you're not seeing it all. You're just catching these quick glimpses of, oh my God, I don't even know where it's coming from next. It just explosions, buildings are falling. Oh my God. And I love it's the idea of, it's like this 9/11 kind of image, like Bruce Wayne, everybody's running away and Bruce is running into the danger because that's Bruce Wayne, that's Batman.
Yeah.
And that look on Bruce's face when he like grabs one of the children and he told him, and he just watches like such like anger on his face. Great performance.
It's so funny because it's playing into the thing that people were most upset about with Man of Steel, which was this idea that we didn't see Superman actually trying to attempt to save people during the battle.
Yep.
But I appreciate that because it also ultimately leads to the moment of Bruce saving the child and then seeing it all and seeing like that awakening and that fear in him, right? I like all of that because it is playing into what Man of Steel sets up.
Yes.
The problem is that I feel like as the movie continues, we kind of lose sight of that because the only other side of it is Lex. And therein lies the biggest issue. And I don't blame Jesse Eisenberg because I like Jesse Eisenberg. I think he's a very good actor.
I do too.
But good Lord, the Lex Luthor in this movie is friggin' awful.
Awful. And he ruins the movie for him.
He is his whole thing is, okay, I'll grant you this. At least it's not a land grab. I will give you that. I will give you that his plan is not a land grab. However,
I almost would prefer a land grab. Maybe.
His whole thing is just to pit Batman and Superman against each other. That's it. Like that's the foundation of his plan is just to get these two to fight, and it like down to the point where he goes, "Oh, there was so much muscle there. I would not pick a fight with this person. Fuck you."
Right.
Like, what are we doing? Like, it's so. He's such a bad version of the character, and it's just such a weird choice.
It's not Lex.
No,
it's not Lex. Lex is not a like whiny shit rat kind of science like Matt. He plays it like Jim Carrey played the Riddler in Batman Forever.
Yeah,
that's not Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is this like sinister whole. He's like actually a Man of Steel. Like he fights the Man of Steel, but he's like the Man of Steel. He's just non-flappable. He is genius. He is 10 steps ahead of everybody. He is maniacal. He is heartless. He is ruthless. And you're telling me his main goal here is to protect the world by killing Superman. And he shares this like goal with Batman for most of the film. But his idea is, I'm going to get Batman to take down Superman.
By kidnapping Superman's mom, by the way.
By kidnapping Superman's mom. And like, not the kryptonite stuff that's going on. He's finding kryptonite and all that. Like, you're going to get Batman to do your dirty work for you. Okay. And then you have other backup plans, I guess. Was that a backup plan? Or was that always, like, was Doomsday always a plan? It doesn't really come clear about, like, what it's kind of like, it's like next. After the work, I'm going to go get Doomsday kind of thing. Yeah. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I totally agree.
Okay.
Like, every time
that's me. Every time I was sitting there watching the movie last night, and I like this movie. But I'm texting you, and I go, I'm bored, and I'm frustrated, and I'm like, the Lex stuff is just bothering me so bad because it was the same thing. He would do something, and I'd just go, okay. That was it. Okay.
It's so awful. Every scene he's in is just really almost ruined because of this, like, the way he's playing it. Again, I don't necessarily think it's his fault. I think he was told to do that way. I don't think he made the choice to do this Lex Luthor this way. I don't think that was the call. And if it was, then you know what? You made a bad choice, buddy. You're a good actor. You made a bad choice if that's the case. But it just every sequence he does, it felt like it was more of like he just doesn't seem, he's not in control. Mm-hmm. And Luthor, if anything, Lex Luthor is in control. Like characters like the Joker or Riddler, those are like out of control characters. They're like chaotic evil. And Lex is not chaotic. He is ordered, lawful evil. Mm-hmm. That's why he becomes president in the comics and stuff like that. Can you imagine this Lex becoming president?
No.
And Go ahead.
It's funny because I mean it's something that we're seeing in the Marvel front right now. If you've watched Daredevil Born Again, spoiler alert for that is that Kingpin becomes mayor of New York. And that's part of the same idea is that it's a character that is so in control that he is able to be schmoozy enough no matter what to gain power.
Yes.
And he's always somehow ahead of people.
Right.
And that is who Lex should be.
Right. That's far more a closer comp than what Lex should be.
And this is the one angle where we start to bring in like the Superman mythos of like, all right, let's finally bring Lex into these movies. And this is how you handle it?
I was waiting for like some kind of like Trevor Slattery kind of thing where this wasn't really Lex.
Well, they definitely have that whole, well, it's actually my dad's name on the company.
Right.
That makes me think that like you could almost be like, oh, he's actually Lex Jr.
Right. Or something
you
like
know,
that.
and then you could have changed it.
And that would have been better. That actually would have been a little bit better for me. And like, I almost sound hypocritical because I remember during our Man of Steel review, I said that this was kind of like an Ultimates version of an Elseworld edition of Superman. If you can get past the idea of like the comic book Superman, you could kind of enjoy the movie that way. And in that, a lot of times in those Ultimate books, they will take like wild swings, and you can do that because this doesn't impact on canon, like it's its own canon, so it's kind of a cool it's a cool story the way they've killed off characters that would never get killed off in like the real MCU or 616 or whatever you want to call it. You can do that, but like, so I kind of appreciate when they do take swings like that, but there's sometimes it's swings that they take and it's just you completely, I think there's a line you don't cross. I don't mean like morally or anything like that. It just seems like there's a line you don't cross as far as characterizing people, because if you're going to like recharacterize people completely, well then what's the point of doing that character? Like if
there's a line,
if you you can move Batman down the line somewhere, you can move him along the line and make him like Nick Fury was changed a little bit, not terribly. You see that's perfect. Read like ideas, you breathe new life in the character, sure, but this is like from point A to point Z, and it's like it's not even anything recognizable as Lex Luthor. And in a totally complete minor way, but really annoyed me for some reason, Jimmy Olsen. Like, you make Jimmy Olsen like a CIA agent and kill him off in 2 seconds, saving Lois because he's like tracking down this warlord.
Yeah.
Like, why even name him Jimmy Olsen? Like, if you want to re-characterize Jimmy Olsen, sure, have Jimmy Olsen should still be a photographer at like the Daily Planet. Like, his basic character should be similar, but like, I mean, he shouldn't be a CIA agent who gets killed off. Like, because you kill him off in like 10 minutes, maybe at most. So why use Jimmy Olsen that way? Like, and kill him. Like, use a different name. There's no reason to use the name. It was just the name choice. It was just like a name choice.
It's a weird choice because now you're doing this stuff with the Superman mythos all over again, right?
Right.
And this continues to be the problem with this movie, and I think in general as a Superman film, or in general just a like moving forward a universe film, is that they keep being like, okay, take this thing that you recognize and then go completely a different direction with it to the point that it's almost not recognizable.
Right.
And the Jimmy Olsen thing is a perfect example of that. Number one, he's not even named in the theatrical cut of the movie.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Jesus. That's actually better than if he wasn't named, then we could not pretend he wasn't Jimmy Olsen. That's great.
Yeah. But like, you do all this stuff, and it's interesting because the Gunn movie's kind of doing this, it seems like, but Superman ending up in the Middle East and like stopping a war sort of thing is kind of part of the same basis of it. But I also don't really get the point of it here.
Yeah, I agree with you saying. We can't talk about Gunn's movie with any authority. Obviously, we haven't seen it. But like,
no. But I'm talking about with this movie.
But no, I understand what you're saying, because I'm saying that like, because I wrote that down too. There's actually a quote in there. It's like Holly Hunter's quote is that we always worry about so what Superman can do, we don't know what he should do, and that seems like it's a big point of contention for James Gunn Superman from that trailer. Same type of thing. We had the Lois interview and everything else about it. But in here, it just feels like it's less of a political thing and less like and more of like a god. And again, that's the theme of the movie, is the god versus humanity or whatever. But it does feel a little strange to have him going over, because he doesn't go over to stop a war. He goes over to save Lois. Like, there's a drone strike and he saves Lois. And it's like, okay, so what is that? What I know what you're saying. It's hard to determine what you want out of that aspect of it.
Right.
That doesn't fulfill,
especially because they have this huge hearing about it and stuff. And it really, then that's the other thing, is that hearing is actually just another trap.
Right.
In order to make it like Superman doesn't save everyone. Right. And that's such a weird choice. And the Scoot McNairy of it all, Scoot McNairy is great in this.
Oh yeah, he's great with what he's given. Absolutely.
I just feel almost bad that he ends up this pawn of a character that Lex just uses to kill all over again.
I don't mind that aspect of it, because that does feel Lex enough. That Lex is like, if the plan was smarter, Lex using Scoot as a pawn absolutely fits my version of Lex. He would totally take someone and use him as a pawn. But you're right in that, like, we're getting Superman to come before this whole meeting or whatever, this meeting in a Senate meeting, and you're going to basically, it doesn't want to make sense, because the destruction of the thing, you're going to blame on Superman, and the idea that Superman didn't go and, like, he saved Lois. He went to save Lois, and you were kind of like calling him out on that, and now you're calling him out on not saving people, like it was his fault, like he bombed the place. And it's like, but where does that even come from? And it even works against him later on, because he's like, afterwards he's there helping out with the people at this point as best as he can and everything else, until he decides to fly off. Whatever.
I like the montage of Superman going around trying to save people.
Right.
I'm always a sucker for stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
I wish, this is going to sound bad, and I know how people are going to take it, I kind of wish it was more fun and less so self-serious.
Yeah.
Because of the music, because in the images, because again, I know the idea is like God amongst humans, God amongst humans, God amongst humans. I get it. You pounded the point home. I kind of wish it was more like Clark going around saving, like, stopping trains from derailing. I wish there was a little more, like, less pseudo-serious stuff happening.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I mean, it does kind of go against, like, what they're trying to do as far as like, how can you blame a guy when he's saving kittens from trees? That kind of thing. So I get what you're saying. I also get what they did too, but but your miles vary on this one, and that's why I totally understand. It's a very valid point of why that's not your Superman.
Right. And it's not like a breaking point. Admittedly, the stuff with Clark in the Ultimate Edition is some of the stuff I like more than most of the rest of the movie. The problem is that I just don't think the movie really knows what it's trying to do, because it's really just on this forward projection, or forward momentum, basically, to get to Justice League. So everything it's doing is not for the characters, but for another movie.
I'm going to say that too, actually. I like the idea of Clark. I love the Clark and Lois, like the lighthearted stuff we kind of get, like the bathtub scene and everything else. I'm like, this feels like it's a Superman thing. This feels nice, fun. What you were asking for, kind of, in a way. Less, not saving people, but still kind of like that fun kind of like brightness to Superman. But I feel like it wasn't earned at all. Like, it feels like it kind of came out of nowhere. Just like all right, this is the Clark where we're at now, because we need to get him there for Superman and everything. Instead of like seeing that happen and seeing them like get together that way, I kind of feel like they skipped a couple of steps. But yeah, they could have done a lot more with the Daily Planet stuff, because that was also taken very self-seriously. And I can understand what they're doing. They had the idea, like, everybody was starting to turn on Clark, and Clark was like wanting to throw his weight again into the Batman story, because it's a way to, like, get out of his head and get out of like the Superman stuff. Let me just do my own thing and do that. I kind of like that too. And I love, again, Love Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. He knocked it out of the park again in his small role, but a couple of different times like that. Like the two things, like in other rooms, water, wet. Yes, so like, but he's such a like a grim, not grim, but like a very stern, crotchety like person, like boss, chief, so to speak. But then he has that great moment, a couple good moments. I go, nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman, which is kind of a funny little line,
right.
but it's very good in the way Lawrence delivers it. But Lawrence does have that one brilliant moment that sells you on the entire character. But at the end, when like during the whole third act, also Lois goes to him and says, I gotta get the chopper in Gotham. He's like, we don't even afford whatever. Perry, it's not for a story. He takes like a beat, looks at her, and just goes, get her a chopper. And it's like, that's Perry White right there, to say.
He is so good, and one of the best castings in the entirety of the DCU. One that I wish we had gotten more of, because I wish we had spent more time in the Daily Planet.
Yes.
Again, this is my argument that I wish we had had a Superman film between these. One that allowed Superman and Clark to be Superman and Clark.
We never got that in this universe.
No. And I think that this movie being forced into a versus film, instead of allowing both Batman and Superman to have their own individual standalone films, building them up, because I think you could have made a much better argument for the Man Amongst Gods stuff had you done a sequel to Man of Steel that involved Superman fighting like Brainiac or something, and actually seeing him in action and seeing why people love him so much.
Agreed.
There's so many different directions it could have gone, and it just feels like it. I feel bad for Zack Snyder.
Me too.
In a lot of ways. Now, granted, I do think that his obsession with Frank Miller's work, inherently not a problem, of course, because he did like 300 and things like that. He loves Frank Miller.
Absolutely.
I just wish that this was not the angle of the Batman in the movie first off the bat, because this is not a Batman we know.
Right.
In the same way that I just wish that it felt like Clark got to be a real character. And I just don't feel like they get to be there, because, again, this movie is not about these two characters really growing and learning ultimately. Bruce does, but again, it's more at the behest of setting up Justice League than it is for the characters themselves.
Right.
And that's the problem.
And I got to say, it's actually a choice to have like Batman brings the Justice League together.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a weird thing, because I mean, granted, honestly, maybe I'm wrong. And I read comics a lot when I was a kid, and I've read a lot of Batman stuff and everything else. But the formation of the Justice League, I always felt like whenever every Justice League book I ever read, Batman was kind of like the reluctant Justice Leaguer. Like, I felt like he was the one that like he knew it was important, he knew it was needed, but he wanted everybody else to beat the Justice League, and he would like but most of the time he would like leave the Justice League, or he would monitor the Justice League. To have him be the one that gotta like, we gotta get the superheroes together, feels like not a very Batman thing to do in a way. Although that being said, maybe that's an Ultimates type of thing I could have learned to live with if it was done better. It was done a little slower and a little more built into.
It's the kind of thing I do anticipate, because at the same time, this is the same character who has a failsafe for all the Justice Leaguers, right? In case one goes rogue, that he can deal with it. So you're not wrong, but I also see the world where he brings them together because he can also control the situation.
Yeah, good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. I just wish that it wasn't because Clark died. That Bruce felt like he let him down in some capacity. And that's kind of my biggest problem in the end, is that on top of everything else in this film, you have Bruce and Clark who keep trying to go toe to toe with each other, but they're also barely interacting in the movie together.
Yeah.
You get the one sequence earlier on in the movie where Bruce is trying to stop the bad guys or whatever, and Clark gets in the way, and then they meet again at the party. But they don't really interact again until the end of the movie.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
If,
I mean,
I was going to say, if you have them do more and interact more, and we have like actual them trying to conversate more, and there's like character depth and building, I might believe more that Bruce believes that he let him down.
Right. I mean, I guess the idea is, and I don't know what the interpretation was. The idea is that he overcommitted so much to defeating Superman or Clark that was his going too far. So he's kind of overcorrecting the other way now in a way because he felt like I don't know. It didn't work for you, and I get that. I don't think it necessarily didn't work for me, but I'm kind of in the middle of it. I'm kind of like, I accept it, but I guess definitely can see how people would have an issue with it. And
I just think that I wish that we had more with them, because it would make me believe him starting the Justice League to make up for what had happened.
Right.
More.
Right. Yeah.
Because I do like when they start kind of actually being friends and palling around in the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie.
Right.
It's just, once again, it takes so long to get to that portion, and it's done in a way that feels honestly a little haphazard.
To your point about saying it is almost a little forced because they're so Bruce is so vehement against Clark, and Clark is actually pretty vehement against Bruce, although I'll come back to that in a minute. Like, it feels like that when they do have the infamous Martha's Angel we'll talk about, they go back to each other, they become friends or whatever. It is kind of like all of a sudden it's like they're almost best friends, like out of nowhere. It's like there's no like ground.
I'm friends with your son. I figured with the cape.
The cape. Is she with? I thought she was with you. She's kind of like that. Like, it's like, what? What are you talking? It's really quick. And I actually prefer that Batman Superman in a way to agree, but like it doesn't feel earned. And I will throw out there, just because it is related, like I was talking before, I do feel a little like Clark's vehemence against Batman in the beginning, like his storyline there feels a little forced. Superman has always kind of had an issue with Batman's methods. I get that to a degree, but it feels like this particular storyline, it just felt a little forced in that way. I wanted to see like Lex, if Lex had actively taken a role in like, I mean, if it does, I don't even know. Does Lex know that Bruce is Batman and Clark is Superman? I don't know.
I mean, you have to assume that's the point, right?
That's the Kent, because Martha Kent. So they never comes like, okay, that's stupid. Yeah, obviously he takes Martha Kent, so he knows that. So if he knows that, and if he had been more like Machiavellian about orchestrating Clark into fighting Batman or like being angry at Batman or whatever, that makes more sense as well. Right now, it just feels a little. But then again, that might have taken up more time in the movie. There's just not enough time to tell the story.
No, because again, we needed 2 other movies.
Yes, 100%.
You needed 2 other movies, and it leads to the one thing that people know we're going to have to talk about in this, and that's the Martha moment.
Right.
And here's inherently the idea is actually not bad, because it does force Bruce to humanize.
Should I go on the record first before we go into it? I'll go on the record first. I have never had a problem with the Martha scene.
I know you
pitch me, whatever, hang me, lynch me, whatever. I know I'm in the minority. But for whatever reason, as silly, everybody else thinks it's silly, so maybe I'm wrong. It is, I don't get it. But I just say I understand that everybody hates it. I get it. For whatever reason, it never bothered me. It never did. But let's get into it.
No, and I get it. And here's the thing. I don't hate the idea of it. I don't. I know it does seem like someone just picked up the Superman and Batman comics and realized that both parents were named Martha, both moms, and were like, I can run with this. Like, that's what it feels like. Someone looked at the comics and went, wait a second. I can do something with this. And
I never noticed. I didn't think about it until I was like, oh, right.
That's my point, right? Someone legitimately went, hold up a second here. There's gold to be had. And so they run with this idea that this will somehow stop this fight.
Right.
That's all well and good. And actually, like, I like it as an idea because it forces Bruce to actually see Clark as human. Like, I like the idea.
First time it actually does, he goes, wait a minute. He's got a mother. He has a mother?
Yeah. You know what would be great? If it didn't also have Bruce sitting there screaming, "Why'd you say that name?" for the next 2.5 minutes every time something happens. Because the scene keeps going and Bruce just keeps yelling it. And there's no real, like, it just, it undercuts the, like, very emotional reckoning that he should be having. And it feels like it's almost camp in the wrong way, and it shouldn't be. And then you have Lois step into the middle of it, and she goes, "Well, it's his mother's name." Like, I kinda wish that it was just Clark and Bruce, and it was, like, Clark going finally being able to say it because the kryptonite is in his face, but if he's the one to mutter it, and then Bruce finally stops and tosses it aside, like, I don't want Lois to be in the middle of that situation. I wish it was just a moment between Clark and Bruce, because then maybe it feels like it builds more into that moment. It's not inherently bad. It's a good idea that is executed fine until it's not. And the thing is like the fight leading into it is pretty fun. It's not amazing, but it's pretty fun. Love seeing Bruce actually being able to fight with Batman, like, or with Clark. I mean, you have them actually going toe to toe for a little bit and throwing, trading punches because he uses the kryptonite to depower him. Like, all that stuff is cool. I just wish that its crux wasn't this scene where he says Martha and you just have Bruce screaming in his face.
Don't necessarily agree, but I am understanding your point. I will say, actually, I did have, as much as I defended it, I would have one. There is one kind of like thing that takes me out of it. Kind of like, it does feel a smidge forced. I understand that, because why would Clark say Martha instead of like, save my mom or save my mother or something like that? So I get that aspect of it, but that kind of tickles over that. But I agree. I can agree that Lois being there doesn't bother me like it bothers you, but I would have preferred it being Bruce and Clark by themselves as well. But I do love the fact that it does humanize Clark to Bruce, and like that sense of meaning. And I guess in a way, Bruce is having an introspective moment while yelling. Like, he's yelling just because I always felt it looked like he was like, outwardly, I'm yelling because I don't know how to process this. Like, inside, he's trying to process this. He can't. He's like, he's just so gunfighting. Like, wait, what are you talking about? What is this? Are you inside my head? I almost feel like it's like, did you go through a second? Like, are you inside my head? Are you like, what's your powers? Do you have some kind of mind control powers or something? Are you reading my mind kind of thing? I think there's a lot that's going on in his head, I think, and that's why I would okay with it. But I understand what you're saying for sure. But I definitely will. I'll go on the record still to say, everybody else hates it and they always laugh at it. They always think it's funny. I'll watch it and I'll be like, it's kind of cool. So
again, I don't think,
maybe if you want.
Yeah, I think that again, the idea is great. Yeah. It's just, I think the execution's not fully there, because it just comes off almost, for how self-serious the movie is to this point, it just comes out of nowhere and feels almost comedic.
Well, that, you know what, honestly, the whole third act kind of gets that way a little bit.
There's a shift.
Despite Superman's like death, which is tragic, overall well handled. I think overall, it's kind of a dark moment, but there's a lot of comedy to be had in that. And you're kind of like, where did this come from? Where did these moments come from? Okay, all right, we're going this way now. Sure, okay. You're right. It is a weird tonal shift. I guess I would not be surprised if that was also not a studio mandate, because look what they did. What the studio did to Justice League. When Zack Snyder stepped away, they brought in Joss Whedon. They want what they wanted. They wanted the Avengers Marvel style humor to be added to Justice League. That's why that became really such a mess.
Well, and there is little bits of humor throughout the movie, but the third act just like shifts.
It's totally completely
in such a weird way. And and I just don't love the Doomsday stuff because you're taking
No.
these two different runs, again, The Dark Knight Returns and Doomsday, and you're trying to toss them together. And one, why did we change the Doomsday design to look like a rejected orc from Peter Jackson's Middle Earth? Number one, like the design is so
Awful.
strange.
Yeah, it's awful. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
it's pretty awful. And honestly, Doomsday is the kind of thing that it shouldn't. This feels like it should have been like Superman 5. Like Doomsday should come at the end of like Superman's run. That should be his death. Even if you're gonna bring him back later on, fine. But like, it doesn't seem like after we have Man of Steel introducing him, that was his first day of the job, and Man of Steel ends where most Superman movies will be like, that's like the first act. Now he's Superman. Now he can go out to the world and be Superman, which is the end of the first act. Like Christopher Reeve becomes Superman, like what, 20 minutes, half hour into the movie, and that's when he becomes Superman.
Mhm.
The other one becomes Superman, despite him having the tights and everything else, until the end of Man of Steel. So the first time he goes out and is really Superman, he's gonna die. Just like,
Yeah.
how does he become a god? Honestly, besides like the one fight in Metropolis, it feels like it's just there's not enough time with him to really earn this moment or whatever. Especially given the fact you're going to bring him back in Justice League, which again, bringing him back should have been his own movie in a way, and not like a Justice League moment in a way. It just feels like a lot of time being wasted on things like that. It also feels like they should have done that, bring him back, and then have a Justice League. Well, that should have been the whole time through. They should have had a Wonder Woman movie, which they did. They should have had like a third Superman or a first Batman or something. Build these out and then have a Justice League movie.
Well, they should have, and it sucks that everything gets thrown into this one movie.
Yes.
The way that it does, because it just undermines every character in the process. It does. It just does. And it's really, really frustrating because you're trying to rush something that's not there.
Right.
And so, you brought up Suicide Squad earlier off mic while we were talking.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because they use that movie in some capacity to do some heavy lifting also.
Yes.
Here's Bruce's adventures before you saw him in BVS. And you're like, what is happening?
Right.
And you're trying to do it after the fact.
Right.
And it doesn't quite land. And it's just further proving we needed more time with these characters. And I think that is going to be the thing that hangs around this movie's head forever. And sadly, because there is no end to this story now, which we will talk about when we get to Justice League.
Yep.
That is the other thing that is going to hang over this movie, is not only was it a rush to get to Justice League, it sets all this stuff up that we're just never going to get an answer to.
Right.
And that's really, really frustrating, because we do start to see this idea of a potential like injustice future where Superman is a dictator over the world, and you're in this like hellscapian Mad Max world, which actually I love this sequence. I think it's super cool because I like the stuff with Bruce a lot in it. The fight's very cool. I love seeing parademons. It makes me happy. Like, all of that is great.
Yeah, I agree.
The problem is we're not going to go anywhere with it. And it comes kind of like, it's a cool sequence, and it also feels super out of place.
100%. And I do want to comment on that. I know a lot of people had a problem because Batman used a gun in that sequence. And my own comment on that is, Batman doesn't really use guns to kill. That's always been Batman's character. I get it, but this is a alternate, like, this is a future vision. I mean, Superman also doesn't use heat vision to kill everybody either. It says like there's not like this is a future vision that has not happened yet. So seeing that, I think, is like, you kind of dismiss that because they're going to prevent that future from happening. That's the idea that Batman has. They're going to prevent Batman from going down that hole where he goes so far dark that he's using guns to kill people. That's just a different side of things. So I never had a problem with this particular thing. If we saw Batman taking out guns in like the middle of and taking out all the thugs with guns at the end, yeah, that I get, and I wouldn't want that to happen at all. But in this kind of thing, it's a vision, and I feel like you have to excuse that a little bit, or like at least like not give it the credence that a lot of people decide to give it. No way, they gave too much credence, I think.
Well, and there is him using a little bit of gun on the villains in the back half when he goes to save Martha, which, by the way, the sequence where he goes to rescue Martha is legitimately one of the coolest sequences Batman has ever Batmaned.
Absolutely.
The action is amazing.
Yes.
Also, here's another use, though, of so that's Firestarter. Why is Firestarter in the movie?
Why is KG Beast in the movie?
Right.
Right.
It's just, or Firefly. I'm sorry, not Firestarter. Firefly.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, what in the world? Why are these characters here? And this is another one of those stop using characters just because you can and then just wasting them at the same time.
You're also not using the character. You're using the character's name. That's really all you're doing. You're using the name of the character. That's really all you're doing, because you're not going to develop anything. I have no doubt that they were not going to put KGBs in another movie at that point. And like, but it makes you want to see, like, superhero nerds like want to see those characters get developed. Those aren't Easter eggs to fans. It's like people who don't get it aren't going to ever get it, and so like, you're wasting the name on this no-name thug, basically. And it's like Jimmy Olsen to me all over again. Like, why bother using the name just so nerds go, oh, KG Beast? And it's like that's a fleeting moment to me. I liken it to one of my least favorite. If you ever listen to Holy Snokes, my least favorite thing about Rogue One was when Ponda Baba and Dr. Evazan appear on Jeddah for 2 seconds, and it's like it's the Leo meme we're supposed to do, and it's like it's a waste, and it just takes you out of the movie, takes you out of the story, and it's not needed. So exile it, please.
Yeah, I just really wish they hadn't done that, but I love that whole sequence. And again, credit where credit's due. Affleck clearly loves this character, and he puts his all into it. It is so clear that it went from being a Superman film to a Batman film in production.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily mad about that just because I think Affleck is so good in the role, but I feel bad for Cavill. And this is the running theme between these 3 films, and even Black Adam. We're not covering Black Adam on this, obviously, because it's a cameo.
Yeah, we're not
going to cover it.
No.
But the point being is that time and again, Cavill feels like he was promised a thing, the thing would shift, and then he'd get shafted. He was promised a thing, it would shift, and then he was shafted.
Again.
So I just feel bad because the dude clearly loves Superman and never got a chance to really be Superman. Right. And it's the one thing that I will credit, sadly, the Whedon version of Justice League with, is that there is a little bit of that with him during the last battle where he's like saving the Russian school and stuff. Like, that all feels like Superman. And it's like Superman being like happy-go-lucky and like being the
bright shining light. Right.
Yeah.
The Boy Scout, the big blue Boy Scout.
Yeah. And you're finally getting that, but not the way it should be done.
Right. I do feel bad for that for Cavill as well, and I also do feel bad for Zack Snyder. I'll be honest with you. Like we could talk to our blue in the face, and like Zack Snyder has his zealous fans who still want to restore the Snyderverse and all that stuff. And it's over, boys. By the way, it's over.
It is.
I would love to see Gunn and Snyder do something as like an animated film or something, like just to like blow their minds. Because like they've totally turned against Gunn and everything else, like because it's Gunn's fault that Snyder left, right? It's Gunn's fault.
Yep.
I don't make it make sense. So I know he has his zealous fans and whatever. Every fan base has their zealous fans and their quite frankly wrong fans. But Snyder deserved better, I think. Whether you like his films or not, he had an idea to tell a story, and he definitely has a unique style. And I would love to have seen him get the chance to finish the story. 100% I would have liked it. I don't want to see it now. It's too late now at this point.
Well, I told you last night, what I would love to see happen is they do an animated 2-part movie to close everything out. Like,
yeah,
that way you can get some of the actors back to voice the characters. You could really lean in on some of Snyder's visual aesthetic and stuff, but in animation. That would be my dream, because I really would love that. But at the same time, I also don't want to give people more ammunition to be mad at Gunn.
Yeah, or anything at this point. Yeah, because it seems like if you give a mouse a cookie, that kind of thing. That's what happened when Warner Brothers gave us Zack Snyder Justice League, which I ultimately am glad we got. I'm really glad we got to see Zack Snyder Justice League. It is a superior version, and we are going to. That's why we're covering it. But at the same time, like it feels like they're giving it that, and here's your morsel. Now they're not happy that they'll now want to finish their story or whatever. And I don't even know if Snyder wants to finish the story at this point. Maybe I haven't listened to his interviews on it recently because I don't listen to very many interviews from him, to be honest with you. But I just think it might be too late. And they did do an animated thing. I'd watch it, absolutely. Hell, if they finish it somewhere else, I would still watch it. I would give it a shot. But it just feels like you gotta not reward bad behavior. Unfortunately, it's not Zach's bad behavior. That's the problem. But he got screwed a little bit. He definitely got screwed a little bit by the studio. And it's unfortunate. And Cavill also gets screwed out of that. And honestly, Ben Affleck gets screwed out of that because he never really got a chance to be Batman. Good showing in this film. But again, he was in Suicide Squad for like 10 seconds or a minute and a half. He's in The Flash and he was definitely, honestly, my favorite part of The Flash. I know we have you hate that movie. I get that. We don't need to go the whole age of that movie, but he is actually really fun in that movie. You get a chance to be the comic booky Batman. He's wearing like the gray and blue and everything else. And he feels like he's like having fun with it. I wish we'd gotten a full Ben Affleck in that world kind of thing.
Well, and in the same way, I think the only person ultimately, and this sucks, just because I also think people are really hard on the sequel, is I think Gal ends up being the only one who kind of gets the chance to really play the character in the end.
Yeah.
Unencumbered, because she gets 2 Wonder Woman movies.
Right.
Cavill never gets another standalone Superman. Affleck never gets a standalone Batman. Gal is the only one who ends up kind of coming out on the other side of this.
Getting an actual movie. And it's a really good movie, honestly. And only when people ever, maybe they say this is short shrifting it, but it's high praise considering how much you and I like the film. I feel it's very much in tone with Captain America: The First Avenger. Similar kind of vibe to that in a way, despite all the magic and gods and stuff like that. Besides that aspect of it, there's a lot of that in there, that fish out of water scene in a way. In a different kind of
Pine's real good in it too.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun seeing it. It's powerful. She's noble. It's everything you want from an origin film and a superhero film.
It just bums me out because, again, what is she doing in this movie? And that continues to be the question that I have about a lot of the Justice League stuff.
Yeah,
why is it here?
I like her.
It's not the problem, I'm just more meaning, what are you doing in this movie?
It almost feels like she's there only to
set up another movie,
partially another movie, and also like she has to buy time for Superman to heal because Batman can't hold up Doomsday for very long by himself.
The moment when he finds the picture for the first time and it does like the slow zoom in with the Wonder Woman theme, and you're just like, oh, so this is another movie. Like it's so weirdly handled, which is why the Justice League stuff drives me the most nuts. So why does Lex have a hard drive where he's given everyone logos and a name, by the way?
Right.
But okay, so somewhere along the way, Lex was like, I'm gonna make logos for all of these people who are powered,
and they're gonna use them.
Yeah,
eventually.
It's such a weird choice, and it just stops the movie dead in its tracks, and it's so unnecessary, and it just feels like a teaser for a movie that we're getting again down the line. And I'm not trying to say that it's because other studios have done this better, because Marvel fell into a lot of the same traps too. I'm not even trying to make excuses for it.
Right.
But it's because it's the second movie.
Right.
And it's because we didn't get another Superman movie. It's because we didn't get a Batman movie.
Right.
And the stuff that's really good in this is still good. Don't get me wrong. Like, the action beats, when they exist, are great. The problem is it's 3 hours and there's not a lot of it.
Right.
This is a comic book movie that is trying to be more thoughtful and more heady than it is action oriented. But it's also the first time in live action that you're putting Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in a movie together. And you barely make it into the 2.5 hour mark until they're even together fighting.
Right.
What are we doing?
Imagine if Marvel had done Iron Man 1 and then did Civil War.
Yeah, it's the same idea.
That is the same idea. And Civil War works. And some people have their problems with Civil War. And I actually understand some of their problems with it. We'll get there eventually in our MCU watch, which if you join the Patreon at patreon.com/PLD Projects, you can catch up with us now. We're already already finished phase 1. We're moving into phase 2. Like how that plug worked.
Well done. That's usually my thing.
I know. You slide it in there. But so some people have their issues with it, but it works for the most part because we've developed our time with these characters. We've had a Hulk movie, a Thor movie, an Avengers movie. We've had all these characters have already been established for throwing them all together. We've already had, more importantly, a Captain America movie. 2 of them, in fact, at this point. Instead of trying to introduce Captain America and then putting him in a fight at the same time, and then that's going to lead into the Avengers, it wouldn't have worked. It couldn't have worked because there's just too much story to tell in a short amount of time. If you're doing a TV series, maybe you could do it that way. Maybe. Yeah. But you're not. You're doing. I mean, I just got a dream once that that would have been kind of cool if you want to start the Marvel Universe by doing it as a TV series and just call it Marvel, like Marvel TV or something like that. And it's just like
Marvel Presents.
Marvel Presents, and it kind of the whole universe gets brought together that way. And some days it's episodes of Iron Man, some is Captain America or whatever. So, or it could have been DC, same way, Superman, Batman, that kind of thing. But you have the TV gives you the time to be able to develop like that. In a movie, you gotta take your time and give yourself those hours to dedicate to getting to know the character, or else you're just wasting time, missing out on important moments that you want to see, and you end up with a rush job that nobody's happy with.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, honestly, this all falls on WB ultimately for looking at Marvel and going, we need that, and chasing it and forcing all these mandates to get to that point. But then on top of it, they really do share some umbrage for all of this because they also cut the movie up once it was done.
Yep.
Then were shocked by the reaction to it being almost nonsensical in a theatrical form.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that they panicked, waited until something tragic happened to Snyder and had him thrown off of Justice League and tried to retool it. All while also retooling Suicide Squad. Every move that they made was panicky and reactionary and drowned this universe before it even had a chance to swim.
Exactly. That's the point. It just really killed it. And you could have chased Marvel. I understand the idea of chasing Marvel because Marvel was the successful thing. So you want to do what's do. You want to do it works. Sure, go ahead, follow that. But if you're going to follow it, then follow it. You can't skip the steps to get there. You have to put in the work to do that. That's why Marvel worked for so long. That's why Avengers Endgame is so successful, because it took its time to develop 10 years worth of storytelling. 10 years, and I don't know how many movies there were before then. You're trying to rush that. You couldn't, imagine going Iron Man, Captain America, Avengers Endgame. It doesn't work that way. You can't work it. Take your time and let things develop in a way. Pick a storyteller, get behind the storyteller, and let it develop. And I know that's an argument I'm making for all storytelling recently. A lot of there's just no patience in the world of storytelling.
Well, because we're running into too many people. Too many people have their fingers in the pot now who are more worried about their bottom line and being able to own their next yacht than they are about the actual storytelling itself.
We need the $1 billion movie.
Right. And that's the problem. You keep running into these things where you just need to let these things play out. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to force either too much, either output, or just too much to get to the next thing, whatever it is. Marvel got hit with the television stuff, and it just completely has floundered them over the last 2 phases. Right. It's just true. The television side of Marvel has basically floundered them.
Yes.
I think that the movie side stuff is overblown, but I think that with the audience, they're tired. And they're even Thunderbolts, which was very well reviewed and had great word of mouth, even it struggled at the box office.
It did, and it was probably one of the best MCU movies in a while, honestly.
Yeah.
We've been defending the MCU for a while, even the latest film. We like almost all the MCU film, but this felt really like a real one of my favorites in a while. It's a really solid movie, but people are tired about things like that.
Yeah.
There is a sense of fatigue. And
Mhm.
I hate that it's that way. I do believe they are correcting in the right way. I believe there is some correction in the right manner to like, as long as they stick with the plan. At least the plan that's going forward. Although now there might be like 4 Marvel movies. It's like 2027. I'm like, kind of like, weren't we supposed to be getting it back?
Hey, at least they pushed back the Avengers movies to give both of them more time.
Thank God they did that, because that was ridiculous. There was no way in hell it was going to work out for them.
No.
Smart.
I gotta give them some
Yes.
sense of credit of recognizing that. But I think that ultimately the truth of the matter is that this is a totally fine and good movie that
Mhm.
should have been a great movie with more time and more build. And I think that is kind of my thesis statement at this point on this movie,
Mm.
is that there is so much that I actually do like. I like the characterization of Bruce. My problem is that we needed another movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like we needed a movie about Batman before this. We
Right.
needed we needed another Superman movie because I like Cavill as Superman, but he deserved at least one more film that allowed him to be Superman before you pit him against Batman.
Agreed.
We should not be chasing Justice League this early. We should
Agreed.
not be. Let the universe breathe, let it take its time, then get into it. And so it just bums me out, man, because this is not how it should have been. It's
Right.
not. It just isn't. And this movie deserved better. Snyder deserved better. Cavill deserved better. Affleck deserved better. This whole thing deserved better because the stuff that works in this movie is really good. It's
Yeah.
just drowned by a studio who was chasing a fucking dream. That's it.
Mhm. Pretty much. It's highly unfortunate. Yeah. I wish we had. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it. I just had like a couple of notes I could run through. If you
Yeah,
have anything else
by
about
all
it,
means. I feel like I'm getting hot now because I'm just like
getting angry.
I'm getting angry because even 9 years on, I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Right.
What the hell happened?
I
Who
will
at
say,
WWE thought this was a good idea?
chasing the Justice League is the mantra. That's like that's the byline here. Chasing the Justice League, and it never gets there. It's like it's the monster universe again. It's like the dark universe and Universal. Like the idea, like the Flash dream sequence, the sequence where Flash from Flashpoint visits Bruce, and am I too soon?
Right, the Mad Max sequence.
Right, that makes sense. Like no, like oh, is he gonna be there? And it's her all along and stuff. It's like it makes no sense, especially now. And so if it doesn't make any sense in your movie and you're not having assurance of it going on, then you're just taking away from things, and it just doesn't work. You could have done that. You could have done it later on in your own film. It just doesn't. It's just it's so unfortunate that it did it that way. But all right. I did mention the Pearl scene earlier. I will say I love that it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohen, like from
I
Walking Dead
never have
together.
to see though. I never want to see the fucking Waynes get killed on screen again.
I
I'm
don't
so
either.
over it.
I don't either. But as long as it was, but the fact that it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne, I did love that. I did love that.
No,
Better than The Walking Dead.
disagreement.
The Walking Dead couple in a way too. It's kind of funny, like, oh, we're watching The Walking Dead here. But yeah, I'm done with the Waynes being killed on screen as well.
Also, no more in slow motion on top of it.
Yeah.
That's
Back to the pearls. God.
I'm going to say it, and I almost feel bad saying it because I don't necessarily mean it to come off this way because I know it's part of like Snyder's aesthetic, but the slow-mo adds at least 20 minutes to this movie. At least if you just made the movie not that,
Maybe.
it probably would be 20 minutes shorter.
I'm not going to lie. I could absolutely be right.
Uh-huh.
But as Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I would love to see Thomas Wayne, him as Thomas Wayne in a further movie at some point, potentially. That would have been kind of cool. Like the whole. When
I wish he had been in Flashpoint.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been great. Seeing Batman for the first time was really well done as well. It was like a monster movie. And they kind of had him like lurking in the corner, and the cop shows up, and they see them, and the girl's like closing the door. Like he's upstairs, and you go upstairs, and he's like in the corner hanging. Well done. Like that's Batman right there. That's cool. Good for getting that at least. I did like, as much as I hated Lex, I did like Lex with the painting. A little bit of, I mean, it definitely a little hammer over the head with the subtle, no subtlety there about the gods and stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of like the aesthetic of it and the visualization of it, and like I kind of could see them turning into the Superman and everything else. I thought that's kind of cool. Let's see, Lois and the General has their moments, but that kind of felt like it was wasted. Like I don't even think you know who the General is. Like he was in Man of Steel, obviously,
right?
But you're like, at this point, it felt like so. Like, wait, who's this guy again? Why? Who's he here?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And I just saw it, and we just watched the movie like 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? It's like, what is this? Bruce and Alfred in this movie. We had mentioned Ben Affleck. Jeremy Irons doesn't get a chance to be Alfred for very long either, obviously, in this world.
And he's very good.
And he's very good. He's got a cool. I actually like the idea of he is a very harsher Alfred than what we've seen on screen so far. In the comics, we've seen sometimes Alfred go toe to toe with him on some things, but usually on screen he hasn't been this way. But he kind of comes right face. He's like, he totally doesn't agree with Bruce going after Clark, and he lets him know it pretty much. And it's kind of cool seeing that. They do turn him into more of an active like man in the chair. Then like, he just becomes like almost like Oracle in a way as well. But I don't mind that actually. I think it's kind of okay. I'm okay with that because I like his background of having that like. It's like an MI background or something like that. He has some World War II kind of thing going on. I think that makes sense to me. Kind of cool.
I do like this version of Alfred who has become like almost he's had a life before that, which means that he can actually get in on the action and stuff if called upon. I actually thought Gotham did a really great job of that.
Yes.
The TV show.
Yes.
So
good call. I forgot about that aspect of it. That's true.
Yeah.
Good call. When Lex is doing Doomsday, we have the computer talking about the Council of Krypton.
Yep.
Man, that was so cheesy. I hate like that. Like
who voices it?
Moments of campiness in there. Oh, who does voice it? I recognize the voice.
It's Carlo Gugino.
Is it Carlo Gugino? Okay, that's what I thought. It's so like, the moment that takes itself super seriously most of the time. There are these moments it's kind of like, that's very cheesy. Why is the computer telling Lex about the Council of Krypton? This is it just seems like so weird. What else we got? Oh, I didn't even mention this. Force Ghost, Pa Kent.
Yeah, that whole thing. Also, he's going there to die, and you're like, what?
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 What are you talking about? That makes no sense. And we don't even know, is it like a memory, or is it like a hallucination, or like what exactly is that? We don't know. They never clear up.
Kevin Costner's so good, and yet,
right? I love Kevin Costner. Love seeing it, but it's like I didn't know that I didn't know Pa Kent was a Jedi. It could be a Force Ghost. Who knew? And
there's just so many little things. Also, there's a moment towards the end of the movie that drives me nuts.
I don't know to bring up. I'm waiting for it.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna do it. There's this weird moment towards the end where Bruce is talking about how he let down Clark and all these things, and you feel bad, and it is what it is. And they do this thing where he's talking about how they need to form this team, and Gal looks at him and goes, "Why? Why do you think that we need a team?" And he goes, "Well, I think something's coming." And we cut to this moment where he's confronting Lex, which why wasn't this just put before that? Like, why are you doing this in this weird out of orderness?
It's so jarring.
And then you have Lex, after all this, being like, well, we've rung the bell. Now there's no going back, and the Earth is no longer safe. And you're like, this is your fault. Why did you want this? I don't understand.
Yeah, what is your motivation, Lex? Really, what's your motivation? Like they were trying to give him like the Tony Stark motivation of trying to protect the world and like creating all this technology to protect the world, but that's not Lex's motivation.
No,
that's not Lex. Lex is the guy who wants to rule the world, not necessarily protect the world.
Also, then there's this whole him deciding to go to, or that Bruce is going to send him to Arkham Asylum, right. And you're like, what? Okay.
Why? Yeah, Lex. Yeah, I agree. I remember that in my notes too. Exactly, it was just jarring scene. It's like just put it before the thing, because like the whole funeral scene is actually pretty beautiful. I love a lot
when
of the
you
funeral
find out
stuff.
that Clark was gonna propose to Lois is great. Like, all that stuff is wonderful.
Bruce paying for the funeral. You have the military funeral in Washington. I believe it's Washington or Metropolis, right? Probably Metropolis. In Metropolis, and you have like the Clark Kent funeral in Smallville. There are a lot of beautiful moments, and it's kind of like wistful kind of sound. The music's playing, the score's kind of playing, and it's really nice, really kind of thing. Like, oh, this is kind of, especially given like what we just went through. It's kind of a cool. I feel like I'm getting to know Clark more in this, this end sequence than I have in the entire movie, and it worked. And all of a sudden, you're just gonna jar like big, like chaotic, like evil, round the back, shoot, and come back, and then you come back to it. It's like it totally takes you out of it and then tries to bring you back. And it's like, well, no, just that should have been uninterrupted. That should have been its own thing, the whole thing uninterrupted. I wouldn't even need that scene. Just Bruce saying, I think something's coming. Fine. I could go with that. It's better than having the like, I think going on. If he just had Batman, he could have just easily said something like, Superman's out there. Doomsday comes. We don't know what else is out there. We have to get ready in case so that this doesn't happen again. We don't lose our people, kind of thing. We don't have Superman anymore. Superman was the best of us now, or something. You know what I mean? Kind of like now. That makes sense. Like we don't need to do this whole crazy Lex thing, which is just dumb.
It's just not handled well, and it's just such a jarring use of because the movie to this point really is linear. So what's with the random addition of that? Also, you get a shot of Steppenwolf in the mother boxes, and that's just kind of there.
Yeah, and you're like, if you don't know the movie, you're like, oh, look at that.
Also, they make it this grand moment that Lex is losing his hair.
Why? Right. Exactly. It's so dumb. It's like, we're going to get the iconic look now.
I just don't understand.
What else we got? I do have a couple more. I do like the visual, a lot of visuals. Zack Snyder is definitely visually awesome. There's a lot of cool visuals. I did like the sun healing Superman, which is really well done. Like his face after the nuclear bomb, and him like kind of coming back to strength. I did love that. I really love the visualization of, you mentioned it before. I wanted to mention it there, but I kind of got off base. When Batman and Superman are fighting for the first time, they're really going at it. Bruce is throwing the kryptonite grenade or whatever at him. And they're fighting. And then all of a sudden, like, I love he's like in the iron suit. He's pounding the hell out of him, and the kryptonite starts wearing off. And see like the punch being like less effective and less effective and less effective as like his face just like it's like stops giving. Like it's like first he's like this, and then he stops moving, and also he stops moving a little, like, and then by the end it's just him like hit again. Bruce goes, basically, fuck at this point. Really cool visualization of that fight. I love that aspect of it too. And Sumi cheesy moment, but I love that when Doomsday starts right when Wonder Woman's about to save Batman, right before when Doomsday has like Batman caught up the Batwing or whatever, it comes down and he sees like him ready to fire, and Bruce just goes, oh shit. Then Wonder blocks it. I didn't like that. Sumi was a cheesy, campy fun. But that's why I love my super cheesy.
Dude, the moments when Affleck really gets to be like almost a camp Batman are some of my favorites.
Right. Yes.
Again, I really wish we had gotten to see him more as Batman. I'm always going to be mad we didn't get more with him as Batman. Just like I'm going to be mad that we didn't get more of Cavill as Superman.
Right. And that funny thing is, like, it's not even a sexist thing. I don't mind not getting any more of Gal Gadot because we had that good at least one.
We got 2 movies.
2 movies of her, actually. That's true. I wasn't a big fan of Wonder Woman 84, but that Wonder Woman first movie was so good.
Yeah, I'm not
on it. I'm good with.
I'm not even going to say whether people, like your mileage may vary on Wonder Woman 84. I like it more than most people. I've
only seen it once. I've only seen it once. And I didn't like it as much, but I am going to rewatch it, so I'll let you know what I feel.
But I also don't blame people for not enjoying it. I just kind of loved that it was a throwback to like 80s fantasy films. So that's the stuff that really works for me because we don't get a lot of high fantasy films. I think Pedro Pascal's great in it. I actually like Kristen Wiig a lot playing against type. I don't know. I've got a soft spot for that movie.
Okay. I can't really argue it because I don't remember a whole lot of that. I remember not liking it too much, but overall, hey, we'll see. I will definitely let you know. Last thing I think we should at least like touch base on, as we mentioned in our text, is the final shot of the film. Lois throws some dirt down on the coffin. And then, like, just before I
didn't know I was watching The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
The dirt that just kind of pops up for a split second and then kind of gets to black, which would have been really cool. I actually like the intention behind it, except that it doesn't end up going anywhere. Like
it doesn't make sense to what they set up later in Justice League.
Well, with what it has nothing to do with it. Like if they had gone back to that, I remember watching Justice League much later, like when it came out, and was like, wait, so what? Really? Nothing? Like, so what was that? Just like, again, that goes to Zack Snyder not being able to. I shouldn't say Zack Snyder necessarily, because I don't know. There's so much going on in scenes as to who did what did what, when, and everything else. Zack Snyder not committing to something. Like, this whole movie is lack of commitment.
Well, and I'm not even going to blame it on Snyder. I'm also going to blame it on WB.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's kind of funny. We're reaching the end of the review here, and I feel like we've been shitting on this a lot. A lot.
No, I don't even. I don't think we've been doing that.
Okay.
We've just been frustrated because there's a lot of stuff that works, but the problem is it's also full of stuff that doesn't.
Yeah, I think we would be less shitting on it if we didn't care about it. Like it worked enough that we care about it, and so we're kind of like, oh, we want this. Like you said, we want to love this. We want to love this, and then this thing that would happen. We're kind of like, okay,
yeah. It's like, I like this. I want to love this movie, but I like this movie. And I don't want people to think that I don't. I really do. I think it's a very good movie. I just think that it's a flawed one because of so much baggage that got thrown on it.
Yeah.
And I do think a big problem in the end is we're also just not going to get an ending to it.
Right.
And that's just reality. Like, yeah, we get Justice League, but no matter which version of Justice League you watch, you're kind of not getting a complete film and a complete, like, it still doesn't change the fact that we're never going to get an answer to the thing with, Flash time traveling and things like that. We're not ever getting those answers. We're never going to see these characters again, at least as we're aware. The Snyderverse is over. This version of the DCEU is over. Yeah, maybe we see some of these characters again if they get into multiverse shenanigans, but at the same time, the multiverse stuff is a real hard selling point for people, and it didn't quite work for the Flash already, so why would it work again?
Right, and it wouldn't. I don't think it would. And honestly, this is like too close to. It's still not. You have to have a little bit of a detachment in order for the multiverse to really have the same effect. You have to let someone go away before you can miss them. Kind of thing. That's why it works so well with Tobey Maguire. That's why it works so well even with Andrew Garfield to a degree. I mean, Andrew Garfield is less. It's more about Tobey. Ever heard about it? It was like Tobey Maguire was the big sell of that movie, seeing him back as Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield, people thought never had a good shot. I guess seeing Henry Cavill come as Superman in a multiverse might work for some people because at least it's because the situation is like, well, he never got that shot to be Superman.
Cavill would be the only one where him and Affleck, but you're never gonna get Affleck in tights again. You're just not. The dude is done.
I think so too. He won't even direct it at this point, which is unfortunate. I'd love to see him direct a Batman movie or like a.
Man, we were so close too.
I know, absolutely. But all right, it is what it is. Let's rank this baby. We always rate these things on a scale of 1 to 11 because we always turn things up to 11 here on PLD Projects. These go up to 11. Our Superman run so far. I'll keep you up to date. Superman the movie, we both ranked a perfect 11 out of 11. Superman 2, which we rated the Donner cut, I gave a 9.5. You gave a 10. Superman 3, we both gave a 5. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, we both gave a 0.5.
The lowest of lows
ever. I think it's the lowest rated movie. We are going to do that someday on Patreon only. We're never going to put it public because we don't want to go public with hostility. But it's a quick, 15-minute video about our least.
There's some people who are going to discover this podcast and feel differently about what you just said. By the way,
maybe could be. Superman.
Be wrong though.
Superman Returns, 7.5. I gave it 7.5. You gave it a solid 10, which is amazing. Man of Steel, I gave a 10. You gave a 9.5. Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice. What are we going to give it?
Oh, it's so tough.
It is very tough because I love what I love and hate what I hate. It's so weird.
I think that as honest as we were here and as frustrated as we sound about the movie, the stuff that I really like actually outweighs a lot of my negatives. The problem is again, I'm looking at everything 10 years almost down the line. with all the baggage, with the fact that we're never getting an ending, it does muddy how I see the film.
Right.
The production of the film didn't deserve it. The actors didn't deserve it. The stuff that really works, though, really works. And so, as angry as I get about how certain things went down and how some of the film doesn't quite come together the way I want it to, I'd be hard pressed to say that it's a bad movie.
Right.
It's a frustrating movie at times, but when it's really good, it's really good. I really love the last hour.
Me too. Me too.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 7.5.
Of course you are. Because I
of course you are,
absolutely gave it a 7.5 as well.
God, of course you are. I like that I'm sitting there like talking myself through it, being like, how am I gonna do this? And that is my conclusion, and then you do the same thing.
We have been within 0.5 of all of our ratings in the Superman franchise, except Superman Returns. All of them have been 0.5 difference at most. Superman Returns had the biggest discrepancy of a whopping 2.5. But man, that is
that is insane to me, honestly. Like legitimately so insane to me, but it makes me happy.
It makes me happy too. I was waiting for like, give it a 7.5. I just for the bit at this point, I want you to give it a 7.5.
I can't believe that I walked right into that.
I always feel like people are not going to believe me. I always feel like I have to like write it down. So like next time I like you don't go, okay.
I really want people to understand. We don't talk about this before we do it. Like there's no world that either of us have like any idea what each of us is going to rate it. We are just very similar in how we see things. So it has made things easy, which is why when we're like really, really off, it's really strange.
Right. And then we don't understand it. Like when you hate something that I love, I'm kind of like, wait, what? Are you sure? You know? And likewise, and vice versa. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Hey, you can't lie, man. We love it.
Hey, the most important thing here is we both know that we're on the right side of history about Dial of Destiny.
That is 100% accurate. 100% accurate. Dial of Destiny. Yes, we love you, and
we love you so much, Dial of Destiny. Enough that did you guys see this New York Times thing that's been going around? Paul and I finally got into it because one of our fantasy chat or like our fantasy football leaguers kept pushing us all to do it.
Right.
And I didn't really want to because picking 10 movies of the 21st century is hard enough just on the outset. But I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I had the balls to be like, I'm putting Dial of Destiny in the top 10 movies of the 21st century. And I'm going to be proven right as time goes on. And I legitimately meant it too.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I wasn't joking. I wasn't doing it as a bit. I was like, no, I legitimately think this is one of the best movies of the 21st century. And I think that I'm going to be proven very right down the line. And he was like, of course you did. Of course you did. And it was like, what were you anticipating? I was never going to not do it.
No, and I did my list very impulsively. It was very, but I'm not going to think about this too much because I started thinking about it too much. I went way too hard. So I just kind of went, just like first, like the top 10 that just came to my head. Like top 10, boom, I went through it. Although, if you look at our list, I don't think either of us would have disagreed on anything on our lists, really, honestly, for various reasons. So it just worked out well for us. Yeah, that's a podcast we'll do someday. Yeah, that was this actually was a fun discussion. It is difficult. This was a fun discussion, though. Despite our misgivings about the film, I'm glad we got to discuss it, and I'm really excited, honestly, to. Besides the time crunch, I am very excited to revisit Zack Snyder's Justice League because I watched it the one when it came out. I watched the debut and I haven't watched it since. I remember really enjoying it, thinking it was a much superior version to Justice League that I saw in the theaters. So I'm really interested to see now on this run how, if anything has changed, if I like it more or less. It's gotta find the time to do it, but I have 2 weeks to do it because that's when we're gonna come back next time to cover that film as we go into James Gunn's Superman. That's coming up really close.
So close.
It's so close. So we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I just realized we didn't really banter up top. We didn't even spend 6 minutes doing our normal thing, and this podcast is still an hour and 40 minutes, and it's almost just exclusively us talking about BVS because it was just like there's so much to unpack.
Yeah, and there really was so much to unpack. So probably the same next time, maybe, but who knows? Also, of course, like I mentioned earlier, the Patreon, we are getting back in our MCU rewatch. That's going to come back next week for you guys on the Patreon.
Iron Man 3, baby.
Phase 2, Iron Man 3. We're having a lot of fun with that. A lot of fun with the MCU rewatch. So join the Patreon or join the YouTube membership if you'd like. If you can't, we understand that. Just help us other ways. Share, like, comment. Help us fight that evil.
Leave us ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Music.
Absolutely. That would be very helpful.
And, beat the 1-star ratings because it happened once. Just once that I'm aware of, but
this one
it did happen.
Definitely happened at least once. So, all right, guys. PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me wherever podcasts are sold at PJ Campbell. Doing the thing here, hanging out. We always do all the fun things. I'm a little more active on the Bad Place now, but I'm still mostly at home over on Blue Sky. Find me over there. We have Thor: The Dark World coming up on the Patreon, as well as Iron Man 3. So if you haven't, again, check those out. Links are below. And then, I'll throw it to my man over here, the man with the plan, the man in the chair.
You find me at Paul Discordia on Blue Sky. I am over at the Bad Place as well. Still, I kind of hang out a little bit there, mostly for news and stuff. But I might comment now and again. You can find me all over this channel, obviously, PLD Projects, and I have my sister channel, PLD Projects Crown Jewels, which is my music side of things. I do a Queen podcast on there. I might be doing some other stuff on there. I'm kind of developing some ideas. I might be rebranding that a little bit potentially. You're hearing that here first, potentially. We'll see. Also, but I got a lot of podcasts to do on the show. Review. Me and Lego have finished our watching of V and the 2009 remake of V. So we're going to do the books, the comics. We're also going to do what I call review adjacent. I just watched Independence Day. It's going to be our first review adjacent film, just in time for Independence Day here in America. 4th of July coming soon. We're going to do it for that. It's going to debut on that day. I'm going to make that my episode of the day. But that's going to be a lot of fun. We're also going to do the Big Finish stuff from V as well. And
I just love that you're finally doing the Big Finish anything. Even if it's not Doctor Who, I'll take it.
Well, it's easy to do V because there's only one thing so far, and there's a second one coming out in August. So I'm excited.
Boo this man.
I will get there. Hey, I started reading Doctor Who books for you. I did do that.
I know, it's true. I finally got you to get that far. It's so funny that for those who don't really like, I have a little library downstairs. And it's my library, to the shock of no one, is like heavily IP based stuff and or just like writers I really like Stephen King and Riley Sager. But I've got a bunch of Doctor Who books, and I was like, if you're not going to get into the Big Finish stuff yet, at least read the Doctor Who books.
Like, and again, I want to make it clear to everybody who's, if you're listening the first time, I have nothing against Big Finish stuff, the audio side. I'm just not really a good audio person.
It's okay.
It's harder. It's just harder for me to do. I like reading it. I like seeing it. That's just my own personal thing. I have tried Big Finish before, and I think they're well done. I think they're really well done. It's just something I have a hard time really taking in. So the books make it easier for me. So I'll do that for sure. And who knows? I'll get into Big Finish at some point potentially. Big Finish Doctor Who is also a little overwhelming to me because there's so many things to go for. That's part of the problem. I have that's
why you have me.
I know. But also on the podcast, on the channel here, I do a lot of other stuff as well. I do Class Action. This is coming up this month. June 30th, we'll be going live to have the big Mission Impossible Battle Royale. And finally, Holy Snokes is going to make its return this week. Me and Maddie Gunner have taken a little bit of a break. We're coming back to discuss Episode 4, A New Hope, as well as the latest Star Wars news that we've come across. And I think that will do it. So we'll see you next time here on 2 Middle-Aged Geeks on Film.
Bye.